Hey, what's up, people? Long time no see. I was busy and yeah, I couldn't make any videos because I was busy. Anyways, I'm gonna hit you with some good shit this week. The first video, hopefully the first video in this week, maybe it's the only video in this week, I don't know yet, is gonna be about the XM-24 Hollow grind. Not so much about the XM-24, more about the Hollow grind that Rick Hinderer just released. I thought that was a little bit interesting that they did that change. If you have been watching some of my videos, I think the only time I ever talked about Rick Hinderer knives was when I kind of complained about their cutting performance, grind geometry, edge angles, thickness behind the edge, all that stuff. If you wanna check out that video, you can find it on my channel. It's not that old, and mainly I talked about Hinderers are too thick behind the edge, they don't slice as efficiently, and probably some other people have complained about the Hinderer cutting performance as well, because they just announced that they will do all their slicer grinds in the future in a hollow ground blade, which is great. You know, I think that's an excellent choice to make, is to make your knife slicier, especially if it's the slicer grind, which is also why you see the H marking on the flipper tab here, also very good, so you can see already in pictures whether you get an old slicer or a new slicer grind. And yeah, this is my first XM-24. I had the XM-18 both in 3 and 3.5 inch, and also had an Eclipse. I sold all of them except the 3 inch that I keep for trading, mainly because of the lack of cutting performance. Please don't get mad at me if you're a Rick Hinderer fanboy. I do like Rick Hinderer knives, I just don't like the geometries. What can I say? I like thin geometries. And yeah, I'm glad that I can check out an XM-24 now. This knife, by the way, is a tank. This is an absolute bruiser of a knife, and it's so thick in every dimension. You get a thick slab of titanium and a thick slab of steel, and yeah, only the slicer grind will have the hollows. And this video is how does the hollow grind perform. This is not a long-term review, this is just my first days with this knife, because this just was released and I just got this knife, so I can't do a long-term video yet. I'm gonna talk about the XM-24 in the future probably, but this is just my first days of use with the hollow grind in the 24. That's also good and important to mention that this is about the hollow grind in the 24. I don't know how the hollow grind in the XM-18 is gonna be, or in the Eclipses is gonna be, because yeah, I don't have one of them. Now, I was a little bit unimpressed at first because the hollow, I thought it was a flat at first, because it actually was, or actually is such a flat hollow grind. If you can see that, there's barely any light coming through there, like ever so slightly. This is a very, very flat hollow. In fact, I think it is the flattest hollow that I've ever seen. The Chris Reef Inkosi is one of my flattest hollow grinds that I have. Maybe you can get that to focus, please. You can see there is quite a lot more light coming through there. This hollow grind is a lot deeper. I'll show you some other hollow grinds as well. This is the Umnumsan. The Umnumsan is thinner ground than the Inkosi, and so is the Sebenza. I don't show you the Sebenza. The Sebenza is even thinner than the Umnumsan here, or about this thin, I would say. This is a lot deeper. I don't have a hollow grind as thick, or as flat, I should say, than the XM-24 here, but this Code 4 here is also pretty flat hollow, and you can see this is a lot deeper than this 24 right here. This is a very flat, I think this is the flattest hollow that I have ever seen. It might be the flattest hollow in existence on the market right now. Some people may say, hey, it's because of the toughness concern. They want to build a tough knife. But, you know, this is a 4.8 millimeter blade stock thickness, and it's 0.48 millimeters behind the edge, which is 19 thousandths behind the edge, between 18 and 19. There's nothing to be concerned about in terms of toughness here. If anything, it's the steel choice. S45VN is not known to be a tough steel. It's more like a high edge retention, high stainless steel, not known to be the toughest steel in the world. So I don't think just because the hollow grind is gonna change the toughness here, really. So that's not an argument to me. I think it's pretty good though. Considering the blade stock thickness, the behind the edge thickness is actually good. It's about 1/10 of the blade stock thickness behind the edge, which is a good dimension. That's what most knives should be, about 1/10 of the blade stock thickness behind the edge. That's a good thickness. We rarely see that in production knives though. And so how does it perform in real life use? It actually slices well. It cuts pretty well. It cuts cardboard, goes through there with ease, despite the thick blade stock. It has the same issue with the choil. That material gets caught in the choil. Same issue then on really all the Hinderers, even on the Eclipse. The sharpening choil is pretty big and things get stuck in there, so you have to constantly be fighting against the material to not go in there. That's a design issue, that's not really a grind issue, right? And I will say though, the choil, the forward choil on the Xm-24 is a lot better than on the Xm-18. This one is actually a choil that you can put your finger comfortably in there. I do like it a lot more than on the smaller models. And yeah, it cuts great. It cuts cardboard really, really well. I cut some rope. I think that was sisal rope. It's a tough material to cut in that thickness, and the Xm-24 did just fine. It did exactly as most of my knives did on that material. I also started slicing some food surprisingly well for such a thick blade stock. This knife is obviously not meant to cut food all day long, but it did really, really well. It was actually enjoyable. It was not something where you would say, hey, if I need to cut food, I can barely cut it. No, it actually cut food just fine, and that was surprising to me. I wouldn't have expected it to cut as well as it did. I slashed a couple of bottles. That's always a good test for the geometry and your edge alignment, and it did just fine. It couldn't make it through the entire bottles, but it did actually quite well. Cut a couple of sticks, wooden sticks, a little bit of carving, and it also did really well. A couple of hot spots issues, as there are always on the Hinderer designs back here. It's a little bit sharp in the back here. Some people are gonna say it's meant to be used with gloves. Oh yeah, I don't use my knives with gloves most of the time, so yeah. And I think most of you out there also don't do that. So anyways, it cut fine. It actually cut really, really fine. I was very surprised about the hollow grind and about its cutting potential, despite it being so flat in the cross section. Like I said, this is the flattest hollow that I've ever seen on any knife, period. I still like it. I think it's a good grind. It actually performs really well. This is my fourth Hinderer, and this is also the first one that actually came sharp out of box and stayed sharp for a reasonable amount of time. It's still rough shaving sharp. I'm gonna see how the S45VN holds up over time. So far, this is my best experience in terms of steel, in terms of geometry and cutting potential with any Hinderer that I had. It cuts way better, and it's also slightly bit thinner than my XM18 3.5 inch slicer that was in a flat grind. It really cuts better than that one. Now the interesting question that I cannot answer is whether the XM18s and the Eclipses are gonna be thinner behind the edge in the hollow grind. That's the interesting question to answer here. I don't know that, but hopefully they are thinner, even thinner than this one. But this one already cuts really well. So yeah, I'm happy that they changed to a hollow grind, at least in one of their variations. I think all of them could be in a hollow grind and all of them could be this thin behind the edge, but I'm just a dumb little YouTuber, you know, nobody in the knife industry listens to me, and that's probably good, but yeah, that's my opinion, my personal opinion on the agenda, if you will. So hollow grind on the Hinderers is approved for me. Yeah, I am really happy. I'm glad that I could check this knife out. I will use it for a while, maybe I do another video on this one, and hopefully the other hollow grinds from Hinderer perform just as well as this one does, but this one did really well in my opinion. That's it for today's video. Thank you guys for watching, and maybe we see each other in another video. Goodbye.